Since taking charge at Leverkusen, Xabi has consistently started with his usual 3-2-4-1 formation on paper. But rather than a rigid structure, it keeps on changing its shape multiple times throughout the match, which makes them almost unpredictable to play against. However, when they start their build-up, they form in a fixed setup. They play with an asymmetric 4-2-4 shape, where the right back Frimpong stays up front as a right winger, while the back three spreads wide to form a back four. The reason for this is that most German clubs are pressing-oriented, making it difficult for the team to build up short. So Xabi applies a formula called circular rotations. In this system, when the opposition presses up the center backs, they pass it to the left back, who deliberately carries the ball and drifts inwards towards the pivot. Simultaneously, the right pivot shifts to the right and takes on the right flank position. Due to this inward movement, it narrows down the front markers, freeing up the wide space for the right pivot, who has a clear path to break through the first line of pressure. But if the opposition adopts a low block, this strategy may become ineffective. To counter this, Alonso uses a technique that combines De Zerbi's Brighton and Guardiola's Barcelona. It's also one of the quickest ways to break any opposition's pressing. For example, when the center back passes the ball to one of the pivots, that pivot quickly returns the pass to him. This creates a pressing trigger for the markers to get closer to the two players, indirectly leaving space for the second pivot to receive the actual pass. This then attracts additional markers who are behind him, creating an open space between the lines where one of the forwards drops deeper to receive the pass as a third man. This draws one of the center backs and frees up the striker as the fourth man. They cleverly use the opposition press as a weapon to break them and start a counterattack without losing the ball. However, if the opposition adopts a low-press strategy and uses one-on-ones against the ball carrier, this strategy may also get flawed. To address this, Xabi intentionally overloads one presser with two. To explain this, when the center back is looking for a pass to one of the pivots, Palacios, who is close to Xhaka, deliberately jumps in with Xhaka. This confuses Xhaka's marker, who is ready for a one-on-one. Once the ball is passed to Xhaka, Palacios, who is unmarked, becomes the third man who advances with the ball. So like this, they consistently create two-on-ones against low-pressing teams and eventually break down their defense. However, once they get out of the first build-up stage and enter the second one, Xabi uses a combination of Pep's positional play and Deniz's relationalism. For instance, after the first phase, both pivots move vertically to each other, and their asymmetrical approach makes Leverkusen mostly play on the right side. This triggers the narrow right forward to shift towards that side as well, creating a six-man box structure on one side of the pitch. At the same time, Grimaldo, the left back, drifts wide, imitating his partner's winger role. This puts the opposition in a terrible situation. If they send more numbers to cover this six-man box, Bayer can easily switch the play to the left towards Grimaldo, who only has one player to defend against. If they spread to cover the opposite players, it could create a 6 versus 5 superiority on the other side, where they can easily progress the ball through their one-touch passes and have 5 or 6 players already in advanced positions. So like this, he uses two extreme styles of play into one, with Deniz's relationalism using one-side overload and Pep's positional play using the box. However, once they enter the attacking phase, they switch from a 4-2-4 into a 3-2-5 structure, where Grimaldo finally advances to act like his opposite partner. But rather than actually playing with this structure, it's generally used to trick the opposition markers. To explain this, when they use a 3-2-5 shape, the opposition often marks them in a 5-4-1 setup. This makes it difficult for Bayer to break their low block with short passes, often forcing them to go long. To solve this, one of the inverted forwards from the front 5 drops deeper and acts as a roaming number 10. At the same time, he gives both his wide center backs the freedom to carry the ball forward while partnering Palacios with the roaming player. This makes the opposition's midfield 4 shift their focus to the incoming center back, creating an open space between their second and third line of defense. As soon as they receive the ball, these players quickly join the front 4 and exploit the back line. Using this, once they get near the box, the front 5 do the remaining work, shifting the entire opposition to one side. To achieve this, they often pass the ball wide to the far side player, while the player inside the half space makes a deliberate wide run towards the flanks and draws his marker as well. This movement frees up the striker without a man leading the back line to spread towards him. When the ball is then passed to the half space player, It effectively draws most of the opposition to the first half of the pitch, leaving the far right and right half-space player with just one marker. A quick cross towards them quickly exposes the opposition's defense and creates a prime scoring opportunity for Bayer. However, out of all these strategies, Xabi's tactic truly emerges when they are out of possession. Without the ball, they press in a 5-2-3 setup. The main objective of Xabi is to always protect the central channels, which he believes to be the heart of any structure. He created an interesting star-like pattern to address this. For example, when the opposition builds up from the back, Alonso positions his front three narrowly, with both pivots just behind them, looking like a compact star shape. This creates numerical superiority at the center with the box of 4 behind the striker. Even if the opposition attempts to play through the center, Alonso encourages his wide center backs to step up as well, making it almost impossible to advance centrally. This forces the opposition to go wide. As soon as they play wide, Alonso's wingback quickly jumps onto them, creating a one-side overload, where the star players cover the center options, while the far-sided center back tracks the wide options. This eventually makes the opposition either retreat and switch the play, or trust their aerial abilities. But if the opposition somehow manages to break this pressing pattern, Bayer quickly transitions into a 5-4-1 shape, where the inverted forwards become the wide midfielders. Due to the back three and double pivot shielding the central areas, it helps them keep the opposition's attack wide, with the wingbacks and wide midfielders ensuring to protect the flanks. However, when they win the ball back using this, rather than quickly launching a counterattack, Alonso lets the opposition press them even more. He invites the opposition to counterpress and let them commit more numbers forward. Once the opposition is fully into their counterpress, Bayer quickly executes a long ball towards their forwards, who are left isolated. This makes them the most dangerous counterattacking side, as they use the opposition's psychology to their advantage instead of simply going with their instinct. But these strategies wouldn't be possible without the roles of Xabi's players. Looking at their player roles, rather than a traditional back three, they form a back four for their build-up, with the right center back covering the space of Frimpong, who is often forward, while the left back stays deep and takes the role of a wingback. Rather than a traditional wingback, Grimaldo is the most versatile player in the squad, who can operate as a winger during attacks, invert as a pivot during build-up, and even act as a third number 10. However, he still fulfills his defensive duties as a fullback, unlike Frimpong, who has been assigned a right winger role. Frimpong's positioning is even more proactive than Trent's, as you might see him as a right winger, a number 10, or even a striker on various occasions. Due to his wide positioning, he also serves as a press releaser for the central players. Speaking about the pivots, Palacios is a box-to-box midfielder, dropping deep to partner with Xhaka in the 4+2 build-up, and then advancing into spaces between the lines during attacks. Xhaka is a deep-lying playmaker, the main man executing Xabi's counter-attacking technique. Moving up to the forwards, Hoffman plays as a narrow attacking midfielder, giving more space for Frimpong to take on the right wing, while he mostly controls the right half space. On the other hand, Wirtz is given a wider role. When Grimaldo stays back to form a back four, Wirtz takes the left wing to maintain the width. He also serves as a key playmaker after Grimaldo, dropping between the lines to connect the midfield with the attack. To create space for Wirtz between the lines, Xabi assigns both his center backs as ball players. This encourages them to carry the ball forward and draw more markers higher, opening gaps between the lines. Finally, up front, Boniface is utilized as a pressing forward. Due to his excellent speed and strength, he plays a massive role in pressing the opposition right from their build-up and counterattacking right after losing the ball. However, these players won't work together without proper team instructions set by Xabi. They are a possession-based team that also creates chances through their aggressive nature, blending control and an attacking mindset. In defense, to apply their pressing pattern, they play with a high line and apply pressure across the opposition's half. In the final third, they're excellent at working the ball into the box using close connections and driving the ball at defense to create spaces between the lines or flanks. Due to the close proximity of players, Xabi always favored short passes. So if I asked you to define Xabi's style of play, you would say it's a possession-based team that excels in counterattacks. It's a team that has a structure but also plays without a structure. A team that uses the opposition's counter-press as a weapon to expose them, while also employing the same method as its own weapon to regain possession. Overall, Xabi Alonso has truly revolutionized football by not letting a single philosophy define him. Instead, he defined his own philosophy. Inspired by Xabi, many managers have become versatile and defined their own style. Yet, one manager who went even further with this was Thiago Moura, a man who came up with a weird 2-7-2 formation that gained significant popularity in recent years, in which his center backs act as midfielders and his keeper as a center back. Using this, he led Bologna to the Champions League for the first time in their history.